In the last episode we looked at the repercussions from the Second Battle of Kronstadt for the losers Sandoria. So now I want to talk about what happened next for the victors, the Republic of Bastok. For the first time in this series, Bastok is the military powerhouse of VANA'DIEL, and so will they follow their predecessors in this role to try and conquer the lands as Windurst and Sandoria did before them, or will a greater threat emerge? Find out on today's episode of Tales from VANA'DIEL. So we pick up with the Republic of Bastok having achieved a great victory in the Second Battle of Kronstadt. They fortify their defences in preparation for the expected return of Sandoria, but as we know from the last episode, Sandoria is too busy being at war with itself to launch a revenge fuel assault on Bastok. So instead, while at peace, Bastok expands its military and the 4th Republican Legion is established. They know they had a terrain advantage in the last battle, but if Sandoria had chosen to attack the capital when it had a chance, they would have easily lost. But all the gunpowder and military tactics in VANA'DIEL couldn't prepare them for what they were about to face. A simple Hume traveller arrives at Bastok from a foreign country to stay at an inn on Gold Street. He sat down for a spot of lunch when, without warning, his face fell into his pebble soup and he died on the spot. Following what we can only imagine was some sort of basic post-mortem, the Hume's body was discovered to be covered in strange blotches. As he was a traveller, little thought or concern was given to this, and he was put to rest and his corpse was buried. However, after a week or so had passed, the entire staff of that inn was found dead, each with the same blotches covering their bodies, and so began the Bastokan Blight, a terrible plague with an incredibly high mortality rate. At this point in time, Bastok's healing was primarily administered in the form of herbs, medicines and holy waters handed out by priests. The Bastokan government had to employ white mages from overseas as the capital had almost none of its own, but they couldn't move fast enough. The damage was already done. The plague was out of control and it could not be stopped. The streets were lined with corpses. The few Galkan undertakers that worked in the city were almost unable to keep up with the funeral services. The priests and the monks were confronted. The city demanded an explanation, some sort of reason for this devastation. The Republic of Bastok was now ruled by panic and despair. On top of this, the plague itself only appeared to affect the Humes, which invoked all these crazy theories and accusations throughout the city. Was this the result of an evil incantation from a Galkan wizard, a new biological weapon of the goblins, or did the Quiddav send poison down through the Palborough mines? This city, united following its recent military victory, was on the brink of being defeated by an enemy that can't be bargained with, it can't be reasoned with, that doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and one that absolutely will not stop ever until everyone in its path is dead. Yes, I did just paraphrase Carl Reese from Terminator, and I'm not remotely sorry. Okay, so the city is in complete disarray, and the odd, almost cult-like culture starts to take hold of the city, and the verses of the ancient Bastokan Song of the Damned are taken up by the masses. Come now and dance with these bones, spin and turn in life and in death. Pauper, sage, even the nobleman knows, they are all in the end of life bereft. Savour now, doomed fool, and make merry this night. Come now and dance with these bones. Sing and croon in life and in death. Old hag, young beauty, even the sweet child knows, in time a bleached skull is all will be left. Savour now, doomed fool, and make merry this night. This verse in particular rose to prominence as the plague ravaged the Republic. Using magic to animate corpses, groups of grieving and hopeless people would fill the streets in processions of living and dead. booming in chorus as they danced the Totentans in a form of morbid catharsis. Just the thought of hundreds of human remains being walked down the streets as some sort of expressionless puppets just creeps me out a bit. To begin with, the government let these processions of the dead and the cult-like chanting slide. They were desperately trying to quarantine the plague at the time, so they didn't have the manpower to stop the masses, nor I think did they want to anger them further and start a full-blown civil war. However, their hand was forced when the dancing of the Totentans led to no small number of soldiers to neglect their posts. Remember, Bastok was fortifying its defences and building its military when the plague struck. If Sandoria were to return now, they would be in serious trouble. So a series of prohibitions was promptly issued with unforeseen but kind of predictable results. An air of insurgency and rebellion swept the people, as dancing crowds began to take to the streets even when the sun was still high in the sky. President Wilhelm was left with no recourse but to declare a state of emergency and mobilise the Republic's main garrison of Galkan troops against the citizenry to suppress the escalating chaos, which in hindsight is probably not the best idea. When rumours are out there that the Galkas are trying to wipe out the Humes, this probably isn't the smartest course of action. Bastok is now on the edge of collapse. Back in those days, mountain folk from the Gustberg regions would travel to the city to peddle medicinal herbs. Among these tribes are some of the earliest instances of dancers, the job available to the players of the game. Without a thought of the danger to themselves, despite the obvious risk of contracting the plague themselves, they would roam the city streets and visit military barracks displaying a dance of their own, the Kriegstanz. It was an aggressive yet graceful traditional dance of the tribes. The majestic rhythms pounded out by these confident women and their motions full of life captivated observers instantaneously, and it was not long before the morose, morbid Totentans rituals faded away as quickly as they had come. People stopped with these morbid chants of the Song of the Damned and gone with the processions of the dead. The dancers had given the city hope, and tensions finally eased, and eventually a cure was found for the plague. Some years later, the significant role that the dancers played in the defeat of the deadly epidemic, which claimed so many Bastokan lives, was commemorated by the president in a now famous speech. Though none can deny the scientific strides made by our great alchemists in curing this foul plague, praise is due also to those fearless masters of dance who came to us in our most dire hour, for it was their impassioned artistry that delivered us from the tyranny of this most lethal of epidemics, and the terror which had gripped our very hearts. And so it was with that the dancers came to be credited with ending the Bastokan Blight. In the wake of its success and popularity during the Blight, the Kriegstanz became a well-established school of dance, the study of which was such a grueling task that finding successors to carry on the tradition became quite a chore in its own right. And it is not without some hint of irony that the second coming of the dancers would require a tragedy on the scale of the Crystal War, with the fate of Bastok in the balance to bring it about. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think next time we should chat about our Tarot and Mythothrens over in Windus, as we've not discussed them for a long while. But until then, take care.